Hello, everybody, and welcome to my project-based learning presentation. Um, Myself, Howard Pridgeon, along with my partner, Pamela Ramos, we kind of split up the workload. So what we went ahead and did is we split up chapter 3, and then she focused solely on chapter 4, and I focused solely on chapter 5. So it's a little bit different because we couldn't get a third party member, but I think we still knocked it out of the park. So let's begin with chapter 3, imagining the possibilities. This chapter is going to focus on the conceptual framework for establishing a project, aka a lesson. The number one thing you guys need to know is project planning is incredibly important. Okay, students are smart and they're going to know that if they go into a project where the teacher's not 100% prepared, then they're not going to take it quite as seriously. Okay, so one thing you need to know is understanding what is important in terms of the content for the project, okay? So whatever the lesson is, it's always smart to go back to your Common Core standards and make sure that you're knocking it out of the park with all of them. Planning is the most important thing when creating a project for a class. Again, students are smart. They'll know if you come in not 100% prepared. So it's always important to establish a well thought out idea before you start this project, okay? One thing that stood out to me in chapter 3 was the question, what's the big idea? That basically is asking, why are you teaching this? Okay, what are the Common Core standards that the students are going to learn from? Okay, so what should you do before you start the project? You should review the curriculum standards. Okay, make sure that you're going to touch base on them. You want to ask yourself, what do all these standards add up to? Okay, what is the main thing that my students are going to be learning from this project? So one thing you could do is create a wiki, which is short for a Wikipedia page. It's a simple to manage website, which allows users to add and edit content, which can be useful for planning and managing a product. So that is one thing that you could do, and it helps you collaborate with other teachers or faculty members. So you might want to look into that. Um, so this is the Bloom categories of objectives, or Bloom's taxonomy. It's kind of, I guess, to sum it up, ways in which we learn. So we create, we produce new or original work, we evaluate or justify a stand or decision, we analyze, we go through things, we apply the information in which we learn, we understand it over time through practice, through um, assignments, group work, and then hopefully at the end of it all, we remember, okay? We recall facts and basic concepts, something that we hope our students can take with them and remember later in life. So some essential learning functions that can help us get to these goals of learning are ubiquity, which is learning inside and outside the classroom and all the time, making sure the kids are constantly thinking, constantly asking why, and understanding concepts of certain things. We want to do deep learning, going beyond filtered information. So, one example of that is not just finding the definition of something, but finding out why that is the definition, okay? Making things visible and discussable. My teaching style, I'm always asking my students why. We're always diving deeper into the subject material. We're expressing ourselves, sharing ideas, or building a community. Maybe we're taking our projects outside of the classroom and collaborating with other students or classes. Which brings me to the next one, collaboration, teaching and learning with others. So for students, they could be collaborating with students from other classes. For instance, I teach film. There's also a theater class on campus, and my film students are required to recruit those theater students to act in their films. Also, for teachers, make sure you're making the most of your time in the faculty lounge during lunch, during break, whatever. It's important to know how you can help each other. Research, we live in a great age and time where we don't have to be stuck on a chair in the library, but we have the internet, okay? So all the students at my institution all have a Chromebook, which is really awesome. It allows them to research anything at any time and just really opens up ways that they can learn. Project management, this goes back to the first slide. Make sure you're prepared, make sure you're brushed up on your standards, and then of course reflection and iteration at the end of every lesson or project, just make sure that everyone knew why they had to learn the material, make sure they understood the material, make sure no one gets left behind, because a class should be a team and the goal should be for everyone to pass at the end. Okay, so this takes us into chapter 5, making assessment meaningful. The main idea of this chapter was understanding the formative and summative assessment procedures. So the first thing that stood out to me was this explanation. When the cook tastes the soup, it's a formative assessment. And when the guest tastes the soup, then it's a summative assessment. So the cook is the teacher, okay? Now he's using all these little procedures and ways to teach the students to get an idea of where they are. Okay, what does he have to, or what does he or she have to do to make sure that his students can pass the summative assessment, which usually is a grading rubric or a test. Maybe it's an oral examination. So all these little procedures that we do during the formative assessment are going to result in getting us a positive assessment in the summative. Okay. Um, so the two types of assessment, I found this picture online. I thought it was very helpful. Formative and summative. Formative measures students' comprehension in the process of learning, while summative assessments measure student comprehension at the end of the lesson or the unit. Okay. An example for both, formative, the teacher has just finished teaching a lesson on fractions. In order to see if his students were able to follow the lesson, he asked some of them to come up to the board and demonstrate the meanings by 1/2, 1/3, and so on and so forth, okay? Now for summative, the teacher gives a paper test at the end of a 2-week unit on fractions, okay? Now, tests can be tough. I mean, they're definitely a controversial topic amongst teachers, but at the end of the day, it's the best assessment to see if your students got the material down, okay? So going deeper into a formative assessment, this is a range of formal and informal assessment procedures conducted by teachers during the learning process in order to modify teaching and learning activities to improve student attainment, aka learning. Okay, so some examples of a formative assessment can be a class discussion, could be questioning. For questioning, get the students in groups. Okay, if you just ask the class as a whole, sometimes you're going to get kids that love to talk and love to contribute, and other times kids will just be zoned out. So if you get them in smaller groups, it kind of forces the students to talk up more or speak up more. Excuse me. Picture files. Picture files are really great. They're basically PowerPoint presentations that focus less on the text and more on having pictures or maybe little videos that can be shown to help students understand. This is a procedure that I learned in my English language learning class. Graphic organizers is another great tool. Self-assessments, so maybe handouts. I hate saying worksheets, but yeah, worksheets. Just anything that can give the teacher an idea of where students stand on the content. Okay, so some options and tools. There's brainstorming, which is going to draw out what students know and care about to generate ideas and directions for inquiry. Brainstorming is awesome. For my film class, before they start any project, I get them in their groups and I let them brainstorm ideas. So, for instance, they're doing a documentary right now. They got in their groups and they were brainstorming people that they can interview or great stories that were on or off campus, stuff like that. Checklists. So that kind of goes into milestones, and it's kind of a schedule that you can go by to make sure that the students are getting and understanding the information. Coffee talks, so just getting students into small groups and going up to those groups and having small conversations. Concept maps used for brainstorming, relating ideas to one another. That's really important. There's exit slips. So basically, this can be kind of like a questionnaire of, so what did you learn at the end of this project or lesson? Interest inventory. This will integrate students' interests and concerns into the project. Kind of a, what are you into? Okay, oh, you're into sports, you're into baseball. Okay, well, how can we link that with what we're learning right now? Portfolio, kind of like what we're creating right now in class, where kids can put their plans, their outlines, their journal reflections, really anything. So that's really cool. For my film class, I have them do production portfolios. So they'll get the scripts in there, the mark script, shot lists, storyboards. Sorry if this is all sounding like it's from a different planet, but yeah, those come out really cool. And the last two are project logs. So this is used as a guide to get students' efforts and communicate progress. And then, of course, review protocols used to structure examinations of students' works. Okay, so again, this is going to all come together and help us get an idea or an assessment on what the students need to learn to better or to get a better result on their summative assessment. Okay, so again, a summative assessment used to evaluate student learning at the end of an instructional unit or project by comparing it against some standard or benchmark. Okay, so examples, testing, presentations, so maybe an oral presentation, and then of course grading rubrics. That ties more into English, especially when students are turning in their 5-page, 10-page papers. But it could also go into other things, such as a history project or a science experiment. But again, I just see a lot of English teachers use it, so that's why it came to mind right away. So tools for a summative assessment, I'll get into two of them. The grading rubrics, which is a scoring tool that represents performance expectations for an assignment or a piece of work. It's going to divide the work into component parts. It provides a very clear description of the characteristics of the work at various levels of mastery. So I'm sure we've all seen a grading rubric before. I really like the way that it's structured in the squares, and you'll have a category, and 0 means you didn't touch base on anything at all, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and then you usually have 5 at the end, which is you did an excellent job analyzing this article. Yeah, they're really great, and it gives the students an idea of what they need to do to get the A or the B or whatever grade they're going for, which hopefully is an A or B. And then tests. A lot of people get confused with tests and think, hey, I got to print out a test with these questions and students got to fill in the answers, and that's not just what a test is, okay? You can give a test online, which gives the students a chance to take it at home or maybe review some of their notes while they're taking it. Just gives them a better chance to pass. You can give an oral presentation, so maybe like you're teaching a foreign language like Spanish or French, and the teacher asks you 10 random questions, and you have to be able to answer back in that provided language with a clear and concise sentence. Or through live performance. So this goes into PE. Can you run the mile in X amount of time? This could be drama. Can you do a 1-minute monologue from a Shakespeare play? And then, of course, in person on paper is kind of the classic way. But I extend to my teachers. It's important to try and mix it up and not just give your students that boring in class paper pencil test. Okay, see if there's other ways that you can test them and get a summative assessment of if they understand the material or not. So that will conclude my part of the presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great end to the semester.